So, ladies and gentlemen, we're back again. We're trying this one more time with Tiffany Lloyd. We actually had this interview before. Something, went wrong technically, but that's all good. So we're going to go back and revisit some of the questions we had again. One more time, introducing Tiffany Floyd, as I know her, TiffsBass on Instagram. We met a few years ago at the NAMM show. We ended up playing the same exact bass brand, so we had a connection that way. And after that, we just followed each other on social media and definitely had a bass relationship since then. So just wanted to let you guys know a little bit about Tiffany. From the female side of things, not a lot of females speak out about what it's like being a female in this industry. So we're just talking about a few things today. So in conclusion, Tiffany, just introduce yourself, where you're from, that kind of thing.
Hey guys, I'm Tiffany Lloyd. I'm from New Jersey originally. I live in DC. I'm based out of DC. I pretty much, I went to school in Maryland, so that's how I ended up in the DC area. And I'm a bass player, artist. I do all I can to spread across the industry, if that makes sense. But
yeah, absolutely.
Just have fun with it.
Absolutely. So, Tiff, how long have you been playing? How long have you been playing bass?
About 20 years and still learning a lot.
Yeah, about the same for me. About 20 years. Started when I was, pretty early on, like maybe I don't want to say I started then, like I had a bass, but I didn't play it.
Right.
It was weird. So who got you started? Who got you started playing? Or did you just want to play?
Actually, well, ironically, there was a deacon in my church at the time, and he played bass, but he played lead guitar as well. And I didn't know really what he played. I used to hear bass in songs all the time, and I finally asked somebody what that was, and I happened to ask him, and I happened to ask, a bass player, so he showed me how to play and everything. My sister played piano, so I was a little bit familiar with piano at first, and I used to try to mimic what she would do, on the piano at home,
Nice.
But yeah, by the time I was in high school, that's when I was captivated by bass. So
Nice.
So.
Nice. That's awesome. It's funny you said a deacon in the church kind of influenced you to play bass. And in that case, it wasn't the deacon for me; it was my dad. That made me start. Nice. I didn't even want to. I was a kid that was, all the kids wanted to play drums. In church, I never was that kid. I didn't want to play drums. I still can't play drums to this day. But yeah, it was my dad that kind of started me going. But that's very interesting. So I'm looking at some of your videos, some of the things that you've done, and notice that you have some type of jazz background. So as far as schooling, like when did you start, trying to learn, or did you go to college? Did you go to high school, like for music, or what was that story about?
So I went to first I went to undergrad, and I wanted to major in music, and I kind of then I backed away from it, and I majored in sports administration. But all along, I was still playing. I was learning in church. I was playing, and I was going to private instructors. So after that, I think at some point, my pastor wanted me to learn how to read music. So I went to a private school for that, to learn how to read music. I stuck with that for about a year. And then I kind of got busier with, playing bass, because I started playing in more churches and stuff like that. After a while, I started to study, jazz. And pretty much I learned a lot of jazz from a lot of gospel players as well, because a lot of them had some jazz background. So I kind of try to combine the two and, study other jazz players, but just kind of combine it all. So I did some private instruction. I didn't go to college for music, but I just did some private instruction. So
got you. Understood. Yeah. Now let's go back to something very interesting that you said that was kind of off the cuff. Sports administration. Do you play? Like, what's up with that? What's that story? That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's definitely different. I played basketball, and I played all throughout, like, elementary school, middle school, high school.
Team.
I wanted to play in college.
Favorite NBA team right now. I won't
right
do that
now.
I won't do that to you. I can't do that to you.
I mean, the Lakers now. But when I was growing up, I loved the 76ers. Yeah, I was a Kobe fan.
That's cool. That's cool.
But,
that's interesting to see, the different side of, most musicians you talk to, they're just all music all day.
Right.
Maybe some sports here and there, but it's good. It's interesting to see, the different side of where you started. I wasn't, I was more of a math guy. in school.
Oh,
I
got
guess,
you.
I mean, I guess that
Yeah.
correlates with
Wow.
music too. A lot of
Yeah,
music
it
has to do with
does.
math. So I guess that's why it came a
Hmm.
little, it came naturally to me. But yeah, I'm
Wow.
definitely a sports fanatic too. But anyway,
Wow.
off topic.
Yes.
So,
Cool. That's
uh,
cool.
so playing in church, growing up in church, playing
Hmm. Hmm.
mainly just playing bass. Do you play any other instruments, or was it bass your only thing?
Bass was, I could say bass was my second thing, but really my main thing. So I started on piano. My
Gotcha.
mom put me in piano lessons when she saw
Nice.
interest, watching my sister. She saw interest that I had in piano. So
Yeah.
she put me in piano lessons, and I liked it. I didn't stick with it as hard. I was more drawn to bass. So, but ironically, when I started on bass, I had to break some piano habits. So the
Really?
funny thing is, I still kind of have an approach to bass from a piano standpoint, but
Okay.
like in church, some of my friends would have to tell me like, okay, you're not playing a melody the whole time. You have to
Oh,
kind of
okay. I
hold down
see.
the foundation when I first started. Yeah, so it's kind of cool. I'm glad I learned early because I don't want to frustrate any other band
It's
members.
funny when
So.
people talk about learning different instruments and how it's a
Hmm.
benefit to them, but not the other side.
Yeah.
You're talking about learning an instrument and
Right.
some of the
Right.
cons to being able to having that as your first instrument, not being able to translate it as well. Maybe like playing a different part, or too much, not
Hmm.
playing them, like you said, not
Right.
playing the melody too much and not
Yeah.
holding down the bass line, which you're supposed to be playing. So
Right.
it's
Exactly.
interesting that you talk about that, because that's people need to hear. Just because you're coming from a different instrument doesn't
Yeah.
mean you're going to be great in another one. It may help in
Right.
some areas, but
Yeah.
I wish. Well, first of all, I wish I can play piano and keys, but I can't.
Hmm.
I reference it all the time, just because visually
Hmm.
you can see, the keyboard
Right.
easier than you can see a bass fretboard.
Exactly.
To most
Yeah.
people, especially if you don't play
To
bass. But yeah, that's very
right.
interesting. I wish I still played keys. You still play?
I don't still play. I really don't. The
Oh
most I
man.
messed with was key bass a little bit, but I
Okay.
thought about going back to piano. When I was getting ready for the Broadway play that was last fall, I did kind of try to brush up a little bit on piano because I actually originally learned how to read music on piano
Oh,
instead of bass. So
nice.
I had to like brush up with learning how to read music on piano to kind of be ready on
Yeah.
bass to
Yeah.
play,
Yeah.
to read music. So it was kind of weird, but
Wow. But
yeah,
that's
so
one
that
of
was the
the
most I
that's
touched it.
that's one of the benefits, though. Like I think I remember
Yeah.
kind of touching on this before, and you were talking about being able to read
Right.
piano, but now treble clef and bass clef if you're reading piano,
Right.
and that's the benefit
Right.
to learning that, or learning two different instruments. So that is
Yeah.
you got to step ahead of the game, in front of
Right.
everybody else, learning two different clefs as far as reading.
Right.
Now, what do you think? As far as reading, what do you think the importance, or how much has it benefit, or how much has it hurt you?
I think it has really benefited me more so than her because I don't have to read often, but
Hmm.
it gives me a full understanding of what I'm doing.
Yeah,
And even when you start to just like learn theory and everything starts to come together and make sense, and it opens you up more. So
absolutely.
it's helped me open up my playing a lot more. I'll
Nice,
say,
nice.
to yeah.
Absolutely. And
So
I heard you mention Broadway. We touched on that before too.
yeah.
That was a very interesting opportunity to tell people a little bit about that kind of, especially, well, now especially with
Yeah.
reading, that has a huge
Right.
benefit, which having to play that. So
Yeah.
tell people about that. So I thought that was
Right.
very interesting as far as how you got into Broadway.
That came out of nowhere. And I never thought about playing on Broadway at all. I had just finished my City Winery show. So I had just finished doing one of my artist shows. And that was like, really fun. It turned out
Hmm.
very successfully. So I was on this high, and then I get a call to do this show. And I'm like, first of all, how did they find me down at the time? I was still in DC. It's in New York.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. Come to find out, the play was for Four Colored Girls. That was the name of the play. So basically, they needed an all-girl band that was of people of color. So they needed a black woman or just a woman of color on bass. And there are other black women on bass, but they just happened to know me. I actually knew. I know a girl on Instagram, and we follow each other. She's a keyboard player that she resides in New York, and we would just follow each other's videos and everything.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we made a connection. And when she heard about that opportunity, she reached out to me, and that's how that started. So, and it was a great experience. I met a lot of friends, obviously, and it was very It was a good challenge as well because, in Broadway, you're supposed to play everything as written.
Yeah.
Coming out of church and even on the R&B scene and things like that, you're used to doing the opposite.
Going with the
A
flow.
lot of
Yeah.
times,
Yeah. Yeah.
right, go with
Yeah.
the flow. So, yeah, it was a good challenge. I'm glad I
That's
had
good.
to, exercise that way. So, yeah. And obviously, it opens up more opportunities, but it was a good experience. So,
Absolutely. It's
yeah.
funny what I heard you say, or one of the benefits of what I heard you say is who you know. Not necessarily having that
Right.
type of resume, but being able to network and
Right.
have friends, and that's one of the questions that I get asked most. Through social media.
Hmm.
How can I network, or not even network, but how can I build my brand, or how can I build my page or
Hmm.
followers or whatever?
Right.
But you have to
Right.
network. It's called
Yeah.
social media for a reason. You know
Exactly.
what I mean?
Exactly.
So you
Exactly.
have to be able to
Yeah.
have those relationships, and just like me,
Hmm.
I've met so many people just like through social media,
Right.
through just connections,
Hmm.
through different people on social media, and I've been able to work with some of the craziest artists and people that I never thought I would ever work
Right.
for or work with.
Right.
It's just been awesome.
Hmm.
So, but
Right.
that's a big part of musicianship, or just this whole world in
Absolutely.
general. So, I want to
Right.
talk about that
Yeah.
as far as them picking you for the Broadway
Right.
play, having a
Right.
requirement as a African American woman.
Right.
Let's go back on that subject. How has it
Hmm.
been, as far as
Hmm.
being in this industry, which is mainly a male kind of dominant, industry,
Yes.
trying to
Hmm.
maneuver and survive, being a woman, not
Hmm.
even alone, just a black woman in this scene. So talk about
Right.
that just a little bit.
Right. It's interesting. It's very interesting. I get a lot of funny comments, a lot of funny, questions. I'll be in the airport carrying my bags, going wherever I'm going, and a guy. I think I said this before. A guy will walk up, and this happened more than once. They'll say, "Can you really play that thing?" And I'm like, "I'm in the air. What kind of question is that?" Or
Right,
a
right,
lot of
right,
times I'll get, "You don't look like a bass player," and it makes me say, "So what does a bass player look like?" So you get those funny comments, but
right.
when you actually get down to the work, it's good. I think the main thing for me, and I would always express this to other fellow female musicians, black, white, whatever, is to never come in with a chip on your shoulder. Just come in as a musician. I think a lot of people feel like they should get a certain perk or a certain limelight because you're a woman.
Yeah.
To me, I see myself as a musician first and then a woman. Like if you're in a studio recording, you're not going to, the label's not going to say female bass player. Oh, like, no, you should come in as a musician, come
Yeah.
in doing, knowing you to do your part. So that's one thing that I've seen, be an issue sometimes, in different rehearsals and, with working with different artists. I mean, it has its time and its place. Sometimes you are highlighted as a female musician,
Right, right.
for a certain gig. And, when it's supposed to be that way, I think it should be that way. But in a general setting of work, people already sometimes expect you to walk in with this I'm a female musician type of attitude, or yeah, just a
Right.
female. So I think, to me, I think it's about the work first, and then, oh,
Absolutely.
you happen to be a girl. So,
Right, happen to be.
yeah,
You're right. I happen to be a female, but
right,
it's
right.
so interesting that I've had conversations like that before, and I think we touched on it before. As far as
Mm-hmm.
females being able to play and having those different opportunities, which is some of the benefit
Right.
because for
Mm-hmm.
instance, a lot of the big female artists sometimes they want that
Mm-hmm.
female band behind them, and they say, okay, so who
Right,
can play this? Who can play that? Let's just grab together a girl
right.
band. Sometimes, and I've talked
Mm-hmm.
about this before, as far as the skill
Mm-hmm.
level, they can be great.
Yeah,
But sometimes,
right.
people kind of get mad about the fact that they don't really have too much skill and they're just getting the gig because they're a female,
Exactly,
and I really
exactly.
respect the females that can just really play. I respect the
Right,
skill level, not just because you happen to be a female, but like you can
right,
actually play,
right.
and I think
Mm-hmm.
people can kind of get blindsided, by the pretty
Mm-hmm.
girl, being able to play
Mm-hmm.
bass or drums or keys.
Right,
You see that a lot
right.
sometimes, especially on social
A
media,
lot, yeah.
and I've heard some of
Oh,
my
yeah.
fellow colleagues, kind of, be upset a little bit because they get a lot more
Yeah.
traction. If you
Right.
see
Right.
they're more eye candy, and people are like kind of amazed
Yep.
by the fact that they can hold an instrument, let alone not even
Right.
really play too much. Like
Absolutely.
I said, I really respect the work
Yeah.
ethic and the fact that you can play, and I just wouldn't have you on here just because you're a girl, but you can actually play. You know what I mean? And
Thank you.
I really respect that
Yeah.
aspect. It was funny because I saw you playing Donna Lee. A
Oh
couple of
yeah.
folks. I said, not most bass players can't even play that tune, let alone trying to figure it out. But you were
Yeah.
actually playing it note for note, and,
Right.
and and that's an awesome, awesome
Thank
accomplishment to be able to even play or attempt to play that kind of tune, let alone just hold
thank
down the
you.
bass. Absolutely, absolutely.
Like actually it was a guy that influenced me to play that you know him, Adam Johnson. He was like,
Yeah.
a while back he was like, you need to learn sax solos. So it is, it's a challenging piece, and there's other challenging like giant steps.
Oh my
Those
God.
are
Yeah.
challenging pieces, but
Yeah.
I figured I would take a stab at it. But that's the other thing with growing up playing in different venues and different I guess you could say scenes. I'm usually with all guys. I have played in all girl bands as well, but I'm usually surrounded by guys. So a lot of times they push me to do things that sometimes not only a typical I don't want to say typical bass player, but a normal bass player. Not no, I'm just trying to say like a
Trust me, I
general.
get, I get what you say. I'm sure everybody else knows what you're saying. You're
Most
good.
bass players wouldn't try. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's sometimes, the ideas that are going through my head when I'm like, okay, what should I try next?
Yeah.
So I'll
Yeah.
think of things that, so yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
Like to challenge myself.
Adam is definitely a friend of mine. He's an awesome player.
Yeah.
Want to
Right.
get him on an interview or just teaching or something like that too, because he's an awesome teacher as well. I've heard from different other people,
He is.
as well as player. So yeah, that's awesome that you actually have
Yeah.
somebody in your ear like that to be able to,
Right.
to be
Yeah.
able to influence you. And some of the things,
Definitely.
and I've had conversations before. Let's going back to the being a female, just playing
Yeah.
music or just being a musician. I've had
Right.
talks with some of the struggles about being a female musician, some of the hardships of trying to get the gig and not really being
Right.
taken seriously, like you were mentioning. And it's a tough world, especially
It
for
is.
females. It's that different spectrum. Like, if if the opportunity arises, like, okay, I'm the female bass player, they need one. But, in the other
Right.
sense, you're thrown in with this sea of guys or a male dominant type of situation. And it's like, okay, I'm just kind of getting overlooked because I'm the female. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
they were expressing themselves to me, and there was a keyboard player here that where I live, and she was expressing,
Right.
she felt like she had to, kind of exploit herself, lack of a better
Right.
phrase. Just to be
Yeah,
able
I
to
get
be
it.
seen, and I felt that was sad in a sense to have to feel like you have to do that in order to be seen, just as a
Right.
female, get the respect, or not just even respect, but get the notoriety
Notoriety.
as a female bass player. I was like, man, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I wanted people to
Yeah.
hear, female side
Right.
of their playing or their journey, just to see what they have to go through and how hard you
Yeah.
do really have to work to be able
You
to
do.
fit in, with everybody else, not just be a pretty face
Right.
playing an instrument,
Right. Exactly.
but yeah, like I wanted people really to hear that kind of story, and I definitely
Yeah.
appreciate you for coming on and talking about it. And
Yeah,
I wish
definitely.
one day we haven't played together yet, but I wish
Right.
hopefully we can. Maybe we come back in and
Hopefully.
we grab basses and we'll
Yeah.
we'll
It
do
jam out.
something.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. We'll do something.
Yeah.
But let
Yeah.
everybody know what you're up to now. As far as I think you have a project.
Yes, I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
put out. It just so happens it dropped during COVID. I didn't expect it to happen
yeah,
that way.
yeah.
So
Nice.
I just put out. It's a single called Paradise. It's just an instrumental. And I just put that out. You can find it anywhere, really. iTunes. You can find it on my website,
Okay.
Amazon Music, Google Play.
Nice.
If you put in my name, TiffsBass, it'll come right up. So,
So
and then,
TiffSBASS,
yep,
and
that's
then
it.
Paradise. Well, your stuff will come up anyway, right?
It'll come up that way. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome,
So,
awesome.
yeah.
Everybody
So,
go
yeah.
grab that project. Tiff is an awesome bass player,
Thank
and
you.
it's exciting to see where you're going, and You know, I've seen you do a
Yeah.
couple of shows here and there. I wasn't sure if you were singing too or not.
No, I had a mic in front.
I
No,
think
I
we
had a
talked about
mic in
that
front of me.
before.
You would think, right? No, I get my friend. I try to hire singers because I don't sing, so I just play bass.
Got you.
So,
Got you.
yeah,
Understood. Understood.
yeah,
Understood.
yeah.
But no, it's all good. So, yeah, grab that project. Follow Tiff on Instagram,
Okay.
everywhere. Facebook, you're everywhere, right? I'm
Right, I'm
assuming.
everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
everywhere.
it's same across the board. TiffsBass everywhere.
Tiff's
So,
base everywhere.
yeah.
Now, have you ever taught or do any teaching? Because I know a lot of people are getting into that
Oh,
now.
yes, I do. I do have a couple of students. I have base students. Now, of course, at this point, I do them online as far as like, FaceTime, Zoom, until we all get out of this pandemic. But I do
Absolutely.
have students. So, yeah, they can
Okay.
reach me, on Instagram or on my website as well if they want to like sign up for lessons. So,
Awesome. Awesome. What is the website?
yeah.
TiffsBass.com.
TiffsBass.com. Yeah. Trying to keep it simple.
I was assuming. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
No, that's awesome. That's great. So follow Tiff on all her, media platforms. I'm sure we'll be back
Yes,
discussing a
yes.
few more things and kind of, trading ideas back and forth. That would be really, really fun.
Yes.
Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. This has been Tiffany Lloyd.
Yes.
Okay, I want to make sure. I see Tiff's base all the time, so I wasn't sure
I
exactly
know.
what the last name was. But
Right.
yeah,
Thank
Tiff, thanks so much for being on. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.